Well, greetings and salutations, folks. Welcome to today's bonus Saturday Nightmares live from New York, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you all there. This bonus just gets us a little closer to it. Before we get into this bonus, though, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's bonus, shall we? All right, everybody. Tonight I have a very special guest. His name is Justin. I don't know a lot about him. He was, I'd spoken to the subscriber Kimmy, and she told me about his encounter. I actually narrated his encounter very briefly on the channel. He agreed to come on to the channel and share his encounter. Justin, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate that. And I want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
All right. So my name is Justin. I am a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. I currently reside in New Mexico, and like the channel that you run here, I'm interested in a lot of things like that, like the cryptid things, like the Bigfoots, the shapeshifters, thunderbirds, things like that. Usually it's mostly things like the Native American mythical things too.
Right.
But that's pretty much what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's pretty much what this channel is about, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day today to, just share your encounter with us. Like I said, your partner sent me it, and I narrated it. And I'm super excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
How did that go down? Like, just right now, you've got the floor, so you share away, please.
All right. Well, it's probably, I would say I was about 16, maybe. It was about 24 years ago. No, my brother and his family, they were living in Dulce, New Mexico. If you know anything about Dulce, they got a lot of stuff that goes on up there, and stuff inside the mountains, seeing Bigfoot, seeing all kind of crazy things. But I don't pass those off as being crazy.
Right.
But anyway, to get up that way, you got to go through this wildlife refuge, and at nighttime, during the daytime, you can drive through there, you can see everything, and it's beautiful. At nighttime, though, it's pitch black when you go out there, so you got to be careful because you got animals that cross the road, you got deer, you got elk up there. So my brother and I, we were going up there because I was going to visit him. So we were driving, and we're going through the refuge, and he said, got his spotlight, and we were looking out to the left and to the right, and we could see, the elk off in the distance because you could see their eyes. Because he's like, there's elk over here. He goes, that's good. They're way over there out there in the field. Well, we got getting closer to Dulce. Onto the left-hand side of the road, my brother slams on his brakes, and he goes, "What's that?" And I looked. I was like, "I have no idea what that is." I said, "It looks like an elk." And it was on the side of the road, like there's a ditch that goes down. So this thing was either laying on its side or, like if you're laying on a bed and you're resting yourself on your elbow is what it looked like. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I told my brother, I was like, "That doesn't look right. Like, elk don't do that." And so he took his spotlight and he put his spotlight on it. As soon as he did that, this thing stood up like on its hind legs. It stood straight up like a man. And this thing was, I don't know, it had to be about anywhere between 7 and 9 feet tall.
Wow.
From the rack that it had, the antlers, the rack that it had, it was huge. So this thing stood up and it just stared at us. And during that time, my brother, he didn't know what to do. And so rather than just, stick around to find out what this thing was going to do, we took off. And as we were driving by this thing, it just stood there and it stared at us while we were driving by. Like, totally just looked like an elk, but it was standing up on its hind legs like a man. And its front legs weren't if you see an elk stand up and they start fighting with another male.
Right.
It wasn't, the legs didn't have any kind of, they weren't angled anyway. This one pretty much looked like a man. It had its legs were standing or were fixed to its sides, like it was standing there watching us, waiting for us to either get out and approach it or,
Were there hooves or were there like sort of hands, or could you not tell?
I couldn't really tell.
Okay.
But anyway, we took off and we got out of there quick. My brother was driving fast, like through that refuge. I think it's only supposed to be like 50, and we were going about 70 or 80. But anyway, we get into town, pull up, and there's a store still open, so we stopped because we had to pick some stuff up to take to his house. And go inside, and I just blurred out, "I just seen something really crazy." And the guys that were in there that were working in the store, they looked at me and they're like, "Oh, we're at." Like it was nothing to them, like they've seen stuff before. And I'm pretty sure they have, but I told them, I said, "Coming through the refuge." And without even hesitating, they said, "What it looked like?" I said, "It looked like an elk." And they said, "But it stood up like a man?" I said, "Yes." And all they told me, they said, "Oh," they said, you saw the elk man." I said, "Oh, I have no idea what that is." And they said it's something that's roaming around out there in that refuge, and like every now and then people will see it. And I was like, that's kind of, I don't know what to think about that.
Right, yeah. So after that, did you, with some people, they say that, like, if they see an entity or creature, cryptid like that, usually a lot of people reference that to a shapeshifter, Native American shapeshifter brought on by a shaman.
Right.
Was there any bad luck that occurred during, after, any time of that?
No, there wasn't really any for me, but I mean, I don't think it would have been bad luck for my brother and them either, because after that, they were telling me about, they were telling me about, at their house where they were living, they got this large table that it's really heavy, and if you have about 5 or 6 people, you can move it real easy.
Right.
Well, one night they said that they were all sitting in the house in the living room, and it's like a, I don't know, like a big double wide trailer, because it's out there on the Hickory Apache Reservation. And so they're sitting in a trailer, and then like my brother-in-law, I guess he told them it smells really bad outside, like a skunk or something really musty. Or he thought maybe it was a bear or something like that, but because they had their dumpsters right there in the carport where that table was, so they had the table in front of those dumpsters. So the only way anything can move that is if it would just, I don't even know if, a bear maybe, but
right.
My brother said that, or my brother said, yeah, it smelled like a skunk. He said the whole time. He said, and you could hear something outside. It sounded like it was grunting. And he said it didn't really sound like a bear. He said it sounded like actually like somebody walking around out there, like footsteps. He said, and the next thing you know, you hear this table move like nothing, like somebody just slid a chair across the floor, and it walks off. But during this time, my brother and them, they had a dog outside. That the dog was mean. Like, the dog wouldn't let nobody in the front yard. So for that dog to not bark at whatever was out there is kind of weird to me.
Right. Yeah. Yep. The res dogs get a little temperamental.
Yeah. But yeah, and then after that, he said that they went outside to check it out after whatever left, and looked around, and they said the table was slid pretty much across the carport, and then the trash cans were dumped over, like whatever was looking through it. But yeah, the next day they said one of their neighbors that lived down the street said, yeah, did you guys hear that thing last night? And they said, oh yeah, we heard something. We don't know what it was. Probably a bear or something. And they said their neighbor said, nah, it was the Bigfoot that lives in the mountains. And I've never seen one before, but I'm pretty sure there are there. Right. There's some there, but yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that happened after that. Okay. After me and him seeing that elk creature thing.
Right. Now, when you going back real quick, I don't know why I forgot, but when you guys were coming up and you guys spotted the initial elk on the other side, you saw the eye shine. Was there a different eye shine of the elk man, or was it almost similar to what you were seeing on the regular elk?
Oh no, it was a little bit different. Like the eye color of this thing was, it was kind of yellowish. So it wasn't like a yellow greenish color. It wasn't like how if you'd see like an eye shine of the elk is kind of like a whitish, or I guess it'd be whitish like.
Right, like a deer almost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But this one was kind of like a greenish yellow color. But yeah, it stood up on its hind legs. It stood up just like a man. Like when it got up, it pretty much pushed itself off. Like it was like if it had hands, and it just pushed itself up and stood up. And that's what me and my brother were sitting there looking at it like, do we get out and look at it, or we just leave? So, we ended up just leaving. Right.
Yeah. Obviously it was, the way you're explaining it, it sounds like this creature was, used to using its forelimbs, and then to stand on its two legs. It's obviously done this multiple times. So it's definitely not something a bunch of, being younger you want to screw with. How far of a distance away was that sighting from where your brother-in-law's home was that had the Bigfoot thing?
Let's see. It was, I would say we were about, maybe about 5 miles away from the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really close. I mean, and New Mexico is notorious for a lot of strange things there. Anyway, it's just
Right.
it's like a hub of paranormal, cryptid, whatever you name it. It's there. You know, you've got the Teo Sound or whatever that's called, and
Right.
you know, so is that anywhere near where you guys were?
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and you know, taking some time out of your day and sharing that with us. I think it's better when, you know, I mean, I like to narrate the encounters, but I think it really matters when the person that it happened to, that way
Yeah.
more people hear it and they're like, hey, this guy shared his encounter. You know, maybe it's a time that we share ours, and that way maybe the more people come out, maybe then the truth will come out a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Hopefully. Yeah.
So,
Because there's a lot of things out there that, I mean, growing up, my grandma, she would always tell us about, she said, there's things out there that, if you're supposed to see them, you'll see them. But then she also would tell us that if these things are coming out and you're seeing them, that means that there's something wrong.
yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So
Your grandma sounded like a wise woman. Now, you grew up in Oklahoma, correct, or no?
no, actually, I was born there, and I lived there till I was 4, and then myself and my parents moved me out to Parker, Arizona,
Okay.
and then I was out there until I was about 12, and then we ended up moving out to New Mexico. So
Okay. I only brought that up because Oklahoma is a hotbed as well for.
yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all sorts of Dogman sightings, Bigfoot sightings, unexplainable cryptid sightings. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah,
another hotbed.
like a shapeshifter legend that we have in the Seminole. We have
Yeah, could you share that with us, please? That'd be awesome.
sure. Yeah, the shapeshifter legend that we have is, I mean, we have a few of them, but one of them that's like one that nobody really wants to mess around with is they're called Steginis. And what those are, they're pretty much just giant owls, but it's like, I guess it would be kind of compared to the Seminoles would compare the Stigini to what the Navajos would call a skinwalker.
Okay.
So it's the Stigini is somebody that practices like the dark magic and does things like that. So how it works is, what I've heard through my aunts, my uncles, even my grandmother, is that once this person becomes the Stigini, at nighttime they're cursed to fly around and feed off of people or animals or things that are out at night that aren't supposed to be out there. And what they described it as, how it does is that this person carries this bag around with them, and when it becomes nighttime and they're getting ready to turn into this giant owl, they'll take that bag and they'll throw up all of their insides, their guts, everything on the inside of their body. They'll throw that up, take that bag and leave it somewhere. And then they transform, and then they go and feed and, terrorize people. And when they go back, when the sun's coming up, they go back and remember where that they know where that bag's at that they left their stuff in, so they go back and they find it, take it back with them, and then they just like pretty much just swallow everything back so they can become normal again. But yeah, so they'll do that, and then like every now and then you'll hear about people saying like, oh yeah, we found this bag, and you open it up and there's stuff in it. They said it looks like they say like it looks like there's meat inside the bag. So what they'll do is they'll take it, burn it, and then maybe like a few days later you hear about somebody that passed away or they died or something, and you start thinking about, oh, that bag that they burned, was it that person, or did that person die of natural causes or something? But it's one of those things that I grew up hearing about from like the myths and legends of my tribe.
Right.
But it's I mean, there's a lot of other tribes out there in Oklahoma that, I mean, they might have similar things to that, but they still refer to it as a Stigini. Because,
okay.
Yeah. And it's like something that they don't, I mean, they probably have another word for it, but I mean, they reference it. They call it a Stigini.
That's interesting. That's very, ironically enough, I vaguely recall around the first year of starting this channel, I was doing encounters by state. And I remember talking to somebody, or not talking to somebody, but hearing about some sort of giant owl-like creature.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I'm going to try to find the video later tonight just to see and hear about that, because I remember vividly right now, as you said that, I was like, wow, I vaguely remember hearing about it or reading it and talking about it, 2 years ago, which is, it's amazing, and there's so much lore that every Native American tribe has, I mean, it's not just like the ones that we know of, the like the Iroquois or the Navajo or the Seminole. There's smaller tribes that nobody really like knows of, like the Onondaga of New York. I mean, that's a small offshoot of, the Six Nations up here. And they have their own lore, it's crazy that, and they all have very similar entities used to protect them, or to, they're all useful or vengeful spirits, like the Skinwalker was used by Navajo when they would war with the Ute. And, it's now this Skinwalker is referred to, it's everywhere in America. It's anytime there's a Shapeshifter story, I saw a Skinwalker, and it drives me absolutely insane. A big thing that I want to do is talk to different nations and just get a little glimpse of, like you just shared, just a little bit of their lore, their cultural history, and just to show other people, hey, there's a lot more out there that we don't know about, and these things were based off of something real to you, to me, to our, and it's crazy. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
So, well, is there anything that you'd like to say to everybody before we end the interview?
I just like to tell everybody to, if you see something, don't think it's just your eyes playing tricks on you. You probably actually saw something that's out there, and these things don't come out for these things don't just come out for no reason. So
Right on. Right on. I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem.
Today's second part of the upload is a report from Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 2. This is going to be a sample, so you know what you guys are going to get when you go over to Audible and check out Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and yes, I just signed the contract for Volume 3, so that will be added to the list very shortly. These audiobooks are not out yet. I will let everyone know when they are available. For years, I had convinced myself that I had come face to face with a real-life werewolf. It wasn't until I started looking into the subject that I had came to learn of a species known as Dogman. My encounter happened in Featherview, Idaho in 1978. I'd recently graduated high school and had been working as an apprentice for a local carpenter. I was always interested in building stuff, and I knew from a young age that I wanted to work on constructing homes. As a way of furthering my skills on my own time and my own terms, my parents allowed me to renovate a guest home that was in the backyard of their new home they had recently moved into. I hadn't spent too much time there, but it was truly beautiful property. The thing must have been over 5 acres. On weekends, I would bring over a 6-pack of beer and get to work while getting a tan at the same time. It wasn't until the 3rd or 4th weekend that I was working on the guest house that I saw a creature that made me question reality itself. Fortunately, I was up on the roof when I first spotted it. I can't say what attracted it to the area, but when my eyes first landed on the figure, it was walking around the guest house on 2 legs. Honestly, my first reaction was that it was either one of my parents or one of the landscapers that they had come over every few weeks in the spring and summertime. My second thought was that it was someone wearing a quality werewolf mask and wanted to give me a good scare. But I quickly realized that if that were the case, it would have been one of the tallest people I had ever seen in my life. I could tell that even from my perspective on the roof, the height alone was shocking. I didn't even say anything when I saw it. I just observed, waiting for it to acknowledge me in some way. I assumed it had to be a person because nothing else made sense at the time. It wasn't even until it wandered off that dawned on me that I might have seen a rare animal. I remember wondering whether it was a Bigfoot that I had just saw only feet away from me. Growing up in Idaho, it wasn't all that uncommon to hear rumors about the alleged Bigfoot sightings. So given the height of this thing, it crossed my mind. I didn't even tell my parents about the first sighting. I was still trying to understand what it was that I had just seen. They were so happy about their new home that I didn't want to risk worrying them. Although, I don't think they would have believed me, even if I tried to tell them what I saw. They probably would have thought it was a black bear or a large stray dog or whatever. And the worst case scenario would be that they questioned whether strangers were wandering onto their land. By the time the following weekend had come around, I had pretty much convinced myself that I had imagined the whole thing. I hadn't told anyone else about it, and began to doubt the reliability of my memory. Nothing out of the ordinary happened during the next weekend, but it was the weekend after that where things got even weirder. I was in the little kitchen area of the guest house installing a brand new refrigerator when I noticed movement through the nearest window. When I got closer to the window, I saw the hind legs of something that was bent over and focused on something on the ground in front of me. See, the main reason I thought it was a werewolf was that while I was looking at it through the window, I could have sworn I heard it mumbling something to itself. Not anything in English or any language I had heard, but it seemed clear that there was form to it. I should mention that was the only time I thought I heard the thing speak. So I suppose I could have mistaken it for something else. I've never seen any other reports of Dogman, allegedly speaking. But given how many reports there are that involve Sasquatch, is it that far-fetched of an idea? I remember how I walked over to the door and locked it before I strolled back to the window. The creature was still present, so I banged on the wall, hoping to startle it, so it would run back to wherever it came from. Surprised, it leapt backward a few feet, and that's when it locked eyes with me. There was something so sinister about the way it looked at me. I'm convinced that I saw legitimate anger in those eyes. I got so freaked out when it locked eyes with me that I walked into the bedroom, closed the curtains, and waited there for I don't know how long. I wanted to call my parents to warn them not to walk over to the guest house, but the telephone line hadn't been set up yet. I kind of just stood there, trying to gather my thoughts while listening for any sign that the creature might still be near. I can't say why I had such a worse feeling compared to the first time I saw the creature, but I guess it had something to do with looking into its eyes. I'm not very religious or anything, but when I was looking at it, I got this horrible feeling, like I was looking into the eyes of a demon or something. This thing had no positive energy to it at all. That I can say for sure. Eventually, I was startled by the knock at the front door and the jiggling of the doorknob. Of course, I wondered whether the creature was trying to make its way inside. And it was creepy as all hell to think that it might know how to use a door handle. It wasn't long before I heard the voice of my dad. He was calling out, asking why I had locked the door, as well as if I wanted an afternoon snack. Worried that he could be out there with the creature, I rushed over to the door, pulling him inside, and once again locked the door behind me. My dad looked so disturbed, and the first thing he asked was whether I was on dope. He said I looked all sweaty, like I had been up all night, partying or something. After I assured him that I was not the case, I told him about the creature outside. When he revealed to me that he had also seen something that he could not identify, he said he saw it climb into a tree, and it was the noise that directed his attention to something that he thought was a hairy human heading into the tops of the pine trees. Of course, he said it in a way that insinuated that he was mistaken. To him, his eyes had been playing tricks on him, and he thought it had been an oversized bobcat or something like that. Whatever he thought it was, he wasn't the least bit concerned by it. I thought he was taking it way too lightly. My dad was a strong, confident guy, but I was worried that this was a circumstance where his confidence might get him and my mom injured, if not killed. When I saw that Dogman looking at me, there was no question that it could tear all three of us limb from limb. At the time, I couldn't believe that these things were walking around in people's backyards, yet nobody's warned about them. The thought of that angered me. As crazy as it sounds, I yearned for a productive way to warn the whole country of what lurks out there. I wanted to explain to people that they should never allow their kids to roam around in or near the woods without close supervision. And even then, it's still incredibly risky. My dad eventually convinced me that the coast was clear, so I walked with him back to the main house. That short stroll felt so much longer than it was. I kept thinking that the Dogman was going to charge out of the woods at any given moment. When we made it inside, my mom quickly asked what was wrong. My dad jumped in, explained to her that I must have glimpsed that oversized bobcat and had mistaken it for something else. His tone implied that he didn't want me worrying her. I couldn't blame him for that, yet I also felt a nagging responsibility to be honest, so that she'd keep an eye peeled when walking around the property. Because of the timing, it felt like such a predicament. Obviously, I didn't want my parents to regret purchasing the property, but I also didn't want them getting mauled by that freakish-looking creature. Ultimately deciding that it was best to remain composed and show minimal signs of fear, I did all I could do to proceed as normal with the renovation. I was pleasantly surprised that my desire to complete the project ended up overpowering my fear. The weeks carried on normally, and I'd begun to wonder if the creature had maybe migrated to another area. Enough time had passed that even I began to question whether I had experienced delusions, and that just maybe my dad was correct to say that my perception wasn't accurate. Fortunately, I had finished the renovation without complication, and I was delighted by how much it seemed to satisfy my parents. They looked forward to providing future guests with a charming and comfortable place to sleep. Soon my speculation about the strange creature would settle. It was the weekend when I was over at my parents' house for an early evening barbecue. One of their neighbors, Carol, was also over. Mom and Dad learned that she had recently lost her husband. They were trying to show her support and distract her from her sorrow. I distinctly remember Carol saying, "What is that?" while she stared out the window. The tone of her voice made it obvious that something bizarre had caught her attention. When I turned my attention out the window, that was when all suspicion that I might have been imagining the animal was squashed. There it was, pacing back and forth on 2 feet, sniffing the air. Right away I could tell that it had been drawn to the smell of the food that was grilling outside. Luckily, it had been one of those rainy days, causing us to socialize inside whenever the cooking meat didn't need attention. All 4 of us were inside when the Dogman appeared. When it proceeded toward the location of the grill, I was shocked when my dad began heading towards the door to shoo it off. I had to stand in front of the door and convince him to sit down. He was worried the meat was going to burn if someone didn't remove it from the grill. That was the least of my worries at the time. All I could think about was that Dogman was going to attempt to make its way inside after realizing that the grill was too hot to remove the food. Of course, that was when I assumed that the creature's intelligence was akin to that of an average wolf. It sent chills up my spine as the 4 of us stared through the window and watched the creature use one of its large hands to grip the handle and open the grill. Its body language conveyed that it had previously dealt with that kind of contraption on several occasions. Furthermore, it didn't even attempt to remove the meat with its hands, even though the tongs were resting on the plate beside the grill. It walked over, grabbed a stick from the nearby ground, and used it to nudge the meat off the flames. After most of the meat fell onto the concrete, the creature got down onto both knees and consumed it like a savage. It was at that moment that I felt like I was watching a homeless man with a dog's head eat the first meal of the month. My brain had so much trouble deciding whether I was looking at something that was more man or more animal. As I looked into my dad's eyes, I could tell that he was ready to forfeit any beliefs that we were dealing with something even remotely normal. In fact, he even apologized to me for implying that I was overreacting. As we continued to watch the animal feed, Carol brought up how she had heard the oddest of noises outside her bedroom window plenty of times. Her deceased husband, George, had grown to believe that it was some kind of extraterrestrial activity because they both agreed they could hear dialogue, but it sounded completely foreign to them. Every time George went to go peek out the window, he never had luck spotting anything. Though she never outright said it, it seemed that Carol thought this Dogman was of extraterrestrial origin, and I can't lie, I sometimes wonder if that could be the case. It's just so suspicious to me that these creatures can exist, yet they're not officially documented by science. Like, what the hell could the reason for that be? The theory that I find most believable is that creatures like Dogman and Sasquatch lead to other even more disturbing truths that the government has deemed too disruptive for society to learn. It makes you think about who or what is watching us from the shadows at all times. all while we're usually without the slightest clue. As you likely expected, the Dogman was efficient at devouring the meat, and once it was finished, it ran on all fours around the house and out of sight. That was the first time I had seen it move on all fours. Up until that point, I assumed it walked upright at all times. I guess they are similar to Sasquatch species in that they are efficient at both stances. When we eventually went outside later that evening to switch the grill off, my dad and I noticed quite a few drops of blood around the area of the grill. Normally, we would have ruled that blood to come from the meat. However, it was too well done by the time the creature slid it off the grill. Neither my parents nor I ever saw the Dogman again after that, but we did end up moving down to Arizona about a year later. Since we never saw the Dogman again, we often speculated if the blood could have been a sign that the rare animal was badly wounded. If that was the case, had it been injured in a gunfight? Or maybe a violent encounter with another one of its kind, or even a Sasquatch. I guess some things will remain forever secret. I encourage you to have someone else with you when you venture out into nature, or at the very least, carry a sturdy weapon to defend yourself. And there you have it, folks, today's bonus. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that keeps the channel growing and going, and what gives folks like all of us a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Just simply treated with the respect we all deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.